Hello everybody. So we are back with Realism Invictus. This is the new version, 3.5, and I'll be continuing my guide series, or well, remaking it for this version. Not too much to go over. The first video will be the same as the last one. This is game setup, so I'll be talking about how I'm going to be setting up the game. This is actually going to be a bit quicker because, as it's going to be a guide series, I thought, well, I've sort of rethought what I was planning. I'm not going to do a custom game, I'm actually just going to click play now. We're going to play with the what is recommended, or not recommended, but what comes as default with Realism Invictus. A few of those things I'll go over. We're going to be playing on a standard map, and it will be RI Planet Generator. I tried Perfect Mongoose again. Certain things about the map script I don't like, so basically it will spawn an island, and generally one civ will get to sit on that island by themselves, which happened to me again. This happened to me in the past when I played Perfect Mongoose. It happened again, and it just I basically camped till like the colonial era. It's not particularly exciting. It's not a good way to teach people how to play. So, but the RI Planet Generator I quite like. The Earth Evolution ones make basically Earth, but they randomize certain things about it. I'm just going to play with the Planet Generator since it's still a random map script, and that is what we'll be doing. So we're going to play on standard size, and we're just going to click OK, which these are all the default settings for this map script. So we're just going to click all the way through them. This is what it is, and we're going to play a random civ because that's what we're doing. I don't really need to rename myself, but we're just going to call ourselves Chaff. So going to play on Noble. Noble difficulty is a bit of a standard difficulty for people coming into the game. You can play it on a harder one if you like. If you play it on harder difficulties, you probably don't need to watch a guide series, but you might pick some stuff up about the new version. Certain things about the new version will not be enabled by default, and I'll go into that in the first episode when we actually start playing the game. But for game setup, this is what I'll be playing, and let's just go. Again, the first thing that we're going to do is what I recommend everybody does when they first load up a game of Realism Invictus, is take a look at your civilization, and we will basically analyse what our civilization is good at, some bonuses that we can expect for our civilization to have, and thus formulate some sort of game plan, or at least a tendency of what we intend to play. You shouldn't follow this as a just, what's the word for it? You shouldn't follow it as if it's law. You should adapt. Obviously, as the game plays out, different things will happen, and you'll need to adapt to certain circumstances arising. We are going to be playing as the Ethiopian Empire, which I haven't played a huge amount of. A lot of the African civs actually, but we'll take a look at what the Ethiopians can do, and our leader. So you start with just a settler and a warrior, pretty basic stuff, even for people who've played Civilization before. We won't be taking a look at them this episode. I'm going to try and get through this a bit quicker, because I've still got some episodes I need to put up. But there you go. So you want to jump into the Civlopedia, which is in the top right here, and then you want to click on Society, and then select your civ. So here's our civ, the Ethiopian Empire. We are going to first take a look at our leader, which we are playing as Mentawab. I'm probably saying that wrong, but there you go. So you get 3 traits. 2 are positive, 1 is negative. This is different to Civilization 4, the base game, or other mods. Negative traits basically, well, they're negative. There is a bad thing that they do, as well as 2 things that they're good at. So starting off with the good stuff, we are philosophical, which means we get 50% great person birth rate, and 50% faster production of a bunch of research buildings. So probably a good idea to spit out a load of great scientists. Great scientists are particularly good in Realism Invictus because they can build one of 5 different special research wonders at every single era in the game. So there's 5 in the ancient era, 5 in the classical era, 5 in every other era. There's 5 special research wonders, and they do different things, and they're pretty good. So focusing on great scientists is an option for us. We also have Industrious, where we get +1 production on plots with 4 production, +1 production from craftsmen, and we also build carpenters, sawmills, forges, all the production buildings we build faster. So high production is good, and this can synergize quite well with philosophical, because it means that we can get our production up very high, which means we can build wonders faster. So we might want to go for a wonder style great person game with this particular leader for the Ethiopians. But and this actually works quite well because our negative trait is schemer, which means we get 40% less great general emergence. So we get less great generals, which means our army is going to be, it's going to be harder to get doctrines. It's going to be harder to get great generals in our armies acting as early medics or just providing promotions for units. So yeah, not a particularly warlike civ, but a lot of people who come into Realism Invictus, I feel like the problem they have with the game is that it seems a lot of people have issues with war. They're not used to the AI being so aggressive and actually being able to win wars, which is something that in Civilization 4 the AI is not amazing at, is wars. But in Realism Invictus, they will seize the advantage. If they think that you are weaker than them, they will try and take cities off you. Especially early in the game, it can happen very, very early on, depending on who you're bordering. So I think we're still going to have to make sure our military is solid enough, but we are going to be focusing on wonders and possibly great scientists as our sort of strategy. Now we want to take a look at our unique improvements. So we have coffee plantations, which requires ritual. So it's a much earlier way of getting plantations. Plantations normally come at calendar. This only works on coffee resources, mind you, but it does get lots of commerce bonuses. A lot of commerce bonuses. And it also provides 1+ happiness in nearby cities, which normally plantations wouldn't do. So that's pretty handy. And the second unique improvement is coffee cultivation. So once you research pharmacy and botany, any sort of fertile soil, now particularly the andesol fertile soil, there's two different types. There's Kermazon and andesol. I think those are the two types, but there is two types. This basically lets us stick these cultivation plantations, if you would, on this particular terrain, and eventually that terrain will then make coffee. It will make the coffee resource appear. So this particular type of resource or type of terrain we will want to try and look for, because it does allow us to produce some pretty good commerce resources that also give happiness. So not bad. I'm not a massive fan of unique improvements that are resource specific, but it's certainly it's a good thing. If we can find this resource, it will certainly help our cities be a bit more well, it will help us produce more commerce, which means more science, which is obviously another thing that we'll be focusing on. Next thing I'll take a look at is our unique buildings. So every civ gets 2 of these. They get a special Pagan Temple, which is basically a temple you can build before you found religions or before a city gets a religion spread to it. And then we have a second unique building, which is unique for our civ. The Pagan Temple for the Ethiopians is the Stele, which is something that you might remember from some of the... I can't remember which civ it is in Civilization 4, but they get Stele as their unique building. It replaces monuments. Our Stele gives 2 culture and 1 espionage, and new archery units receive 1 experience, which if you compare to a Pagan Temple, a standard Pagan Temple just gives 2 culture and then 20% defense bonus to your city. So extra espionage. It's hard to get espionage in the early game. It depends if you like playing with espionage or not. I normally just use it as a way of being able to see what the AI is up to. It's not a particularly powerful Pagan Temple, so I won't be focusing on it. The XP for archery units isn't terrible, but it's not going to be enough to get us to level 2 promotions straight off the bat, so it's not like a high priority. So I probably won't be building a huge amount of these, but +2 culture is actually quite good for a Pagan Temple. A lot of them only give +1, or they give +1 and then another +1 culture for another building you have to build. So 2 culture is actually quite good on them. If we need early culture, it might be worth building a couple of these. And our second unique building is the Oromo Jeweler, which replaces the Jeweler, which is a new building in Realism Invictus. It requires aesthetics, which is a classical era technology, and one of the sort of luxury mineral resources, so gems, gold, or silver. It means that your city gets a +1 commerce to all precious mines, which are special mines that you build on these resources. And it provides extra commerce in the city if you have access to gems, elephants, pearls, or sea amber. It also provides extra happiness from gems, gold, and silver. The Oromo Jeweler provides 2 culture on top of these bonuses, as well as an extra citizen into a merchant. So it's not a bad building. Apparently you could build this as well without requiring resources. Unless, of course, that's just the Civilopedia being a little wrong. But this says it requires aesthetics and these resources. The Oromo Jeweler says it doesn't require those. So it might be worth building for the... I mean, building it for the culture is fine on its own. But building it just for the turning citizens into merchants could be another thing, especially since we get extra great people. I'm not a huge fan of great merchants, but they have their uses, especially later in the game when you can send them on really, really long trade missions to generate like thousands and thousands of gold. That can be handy. So, yeah, not the most impactful, unique building, but certainly a decent one. I have no qualms with that. So let's jump back to society. The last thing we need to look at is our unique units. So every civilization has distinctive units, which are effectively... so you get your swordsman and your spearmen in standard civilization or in other mods. In Realism Invictus, swordsmen, spearmen, archers, etc., they all have a cultural distinction to them. So the spearmen for Ethiopia are going to be different to the spearmen for Egypt, or the spearmen for Germany, etc., etc. And they will have certain advantages and disadvantages based on your culture. So if I take a quick look at the standard African, let's see, Axumite spearmen, here we go. So they're standard spearmen units. So normal spearmen will have a bonus versus archery units and a bonus versus charge mounted units. The Axumites, the Ethiopian spearmen, get a 5% bonus to hill strength. So a small bonus when fighting on hills, which is not massively impactful, but that sort of, like, you know, cultural distinct advantages will you will be able to see that with every single unit you build. And it can make the difference to winning and losing battles if you are a civ that has particularly large bonuses when doing certain or having certain effects in warfare. But our unique units are unique to our nation, and these are the Oromo Warrior, which is a gunpowder unit. So we're only allowed 6 of them. They provide ranged aid and inspiration. Ranged aid is a special thing to do with warfare and having different units in your stacks in your armies. I'll go into this more when warfare becomes a thing later in the guide. And inspiration is another thing which is also to do with that mechanic. These guys have bonus in fighting in cities, bonus hills, fighting in hills, attack versus charge cavalry and melee units. They have a flat bonus versus melee units, and then a bonus attack versus range mounted units. They also start with drill 2 and 3. Drill 2 gives an extra first strike. This is not a chance, it's just you have an extra first strike. And then drill 3 gives 2 extra first strike chances. We also take less collateral damage. So these units have 3 first strikes on top of being gunpowder units. And they're actually one of the earlier gunpowder units you can get. So pretty powerful. They've got solid bonuses. They're good at attacking cities as well, which gunpowder units, when you unlock them, they will ignore most of the defensive bonuses on cities. So pretty solid. It's kind of like a unit that once you first unlock it, that's when it's most powerful. It's not one that you'll have hanging around for a long time, but pretty good. I like that. Gunpowder units are a bit further in the game, but which may be further than I take the guide, but you know, it's a pretty good unit. Next we have the Mele Safari, which is so they come at mass conscription, which is it's a sort of late industrial technology, and they require firearms and semi-automatic firearms or whatnot. We're allowed 4 of them. They have 20% hill strength, so again, following with the Ethiopian theme, that we have a bonus in fighting in hills. 150% versus melee units. A lot of the late game, so a lot of the sort of later game gunpowder units have massive bonuses versus melee units because they just outclass them. So that's Realism Invictus' way of showcasing that gunpowder just completely overrides all other forms of warfare. So there you go. They start with Pinch, which gives them a 25% bonus versus other gunpowder units, and they also have City Garrison 4, which gives them an extra first strike and 30% extra city defense. So a pretty solid city defender. At this stage of the game, so very, very late game, I don't know how relevant city defense units are. I mean, if you're capturing a city and then using these guys to defend against sort of counterattacks, could be pretty good. But I'm not sure how much I like them as just a city defense unit. I'm not a massive fan of unique national units being focused on defense. I like offensive national units that give you like that edge in when you're trying to take land. But you know, you take what you get. It's not bad. Not bad. I mean, 4 city garrisons, pretty high level promotion. And then we have Kebu Zabanga, which require infantry, logistics, barbed wire, and then again more firearms tech. We're allowed 4 of them. They are basically a repeat of this unit. Yeah, they are literally a repeat of that unit. So we get city defense units for a bit of a wider stretch of time. So around the sort of late industrial period, we have very strong city defensive units, but again, that's quite late in the game, so we'll see if they're relevant or not. But there's our civ. So just to summarise, good production rates, good great people and science buildings. Less great generals, so not so warlike, a lot of building, a lot of great people. Unique improvement for finding resources, can be useful for trade, good commerce bonus, and it provides happiness in cities, as well as we can just cultivate that resource. So can be useful to look for that particular terrain to make use of that advantage. Unique building, replaces the jeweler, provides extra merchants, pretty handy, and extra culture. Pagan Temple, extra espionage, not massively enamoured by it, but may build a couple for early culture. And as far as unique units go, we've got 2 defensive units that are very late game, and then the Oromo Warrior, which is a very good tempo unit. So you just unlock gunpowder, and you can train these guys, and they're pretty good at taking cities. So it might be worth, like, as soon as we hit gunpowder units, going very aggressive, because we'll have a strong advantage at that point for capturing people's cities with gunpowder units, like on top of the normal advantage for discovering gunpowder. So that's our civ. Gonna end the episode there. Next episode I'll actually be playing the game and going over the first 50 turns, what you should be doing. I've actually changed my strategy since. This is in part because it's a lower difficulty, but I think it would still work on higher difficulties as well. I have tested it, it does seem to do pretty well. This may depend on resources that appear, and I will talk about that in the next episode. Anyway, it's been me, Chaff Commander Coffee. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for our first real gameplay and first real episode of the guide series for Realism Invictus version 3.5. Goodbye.